Could the third time be the charm? Diddy is currently losing it inside prison and has assembled a new legal team for his third attempt at bail.
We made a bail appeal to Judge Carter. It did not go our way. The fight continues. We're not giving up by a long shot.
So why the panic? Is it because Diddy suddenly realized that this is no longer his multi-million-dollar mansion, but an actual prison cell? Yeah. But more than that, it's the reality setting in that he could be facing life behind bars.
There's really no deal that the U.S. Attorney's Office can offer, and it's certainly not one that Diddy will accept. It would involve decades in federal prison. We're talking about mandatory minimum sentences of 10 years for both the drug charges and the trafficking.
Racketeering alone can land someone decades in prison. And let's not even get started on the potential outcomes if he's convicted of trafficking and other charges. Decades-long sentences. Oh, you bet that's on the table. And here's the kicker. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is one of the worst prisons anyone can be in. We're talking about rough conditions, reports of violence, lack of medical care, and don't even get me started on the number of gangsters in this prison. On the 30th of September, an inmate was unalived by a gang member who stabbed him 44 times because he thought that he was giving information to the authorities. This is the level of violence that inmates experience in MDC. Diddy isn't the only celebrity who has been to MDC. In fact, it is infamous. It's where big names like R. Kelly, Fetty Wap, and Ghislaine Maxwell stayed, and it's been described as mentally crippling. Let's not forget, Diddy is a huge name in the industry. That kind of fame makes him a target in prison, and it's no joke. If you think inmates don't know who he is or what he's accused of, think again. Maybe that's why it took a toll on his mental health. Diddy was initially placed on suicide watch when he first landed behind bars, but now reports say he's been taken off that watch. Apparently, he's stronger now and has been visiting with family who traveled to meet him inside the infamous Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The burning question is, why was he on suicide watch in the first place?
The story we're tracking, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs on suicide watch at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center after two judges denied his request for bail.
It turns out that this is standard procedure for wealthy people who find themselves locked up in jail.
But his lawyer is saying he's not suicidal, this is just routine for high-profile inmates.
The idea is to ensure that people in this situation don't take drastic actions in the early days of their incarceration when reality sets in hard. Think about it. You go from luxury penthouses to cold steel bars in a matter of days. It's a shock to the system. This is a man who has been on top for decades, so being behind bars isn't just an inconvenience, it's a life crisis. In some cases, this can lead to intrusive thoughts, just like in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, who allegedly unalived himself in prison before his case could even get to trial. Also, let's not forget the public humiliation factor for Diddy. When you're a global icon, like everyone's watching, add in the mounting legal charges and the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison, it's no wonder they were worried about his mental state. Unfortunately, the public doesn't seem to care as much and loves that he is behind bars. Diddy's legal team has been fighting tooth and nail to ensure that the public sees Diddy in a positive light, but it does not seem to be working. For one, his head attorney, Mark Agnifilo, has said numerous times since he was arrested that Diddy was fully ready to surrender himself, and that's why he flew to New York.
He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid.
Guys, something tells me Diddy flew to New York to prove his innocence. All things aside, that's a good lawyer because he has tried to focus on the positive aspect of this case, which is Diddy's willingness to surrender. But the thing is, he literally had no choice. The video of him assaulting Cassie was all over the internet and witnesses were coming forward. It reached a point where if the federal government did not get involved, it would seem like they were in on it with Diddy. That's how much publicity the case was getting. Diddy's lawyer tried to downplay the controversial video.
Let me just point out one very important thing. The prosecutors are seizing on something that happened 8 years ago. You know, this video that we've all seen, and it's a bad video for Mr. Combs, and he said so himself when he gave his apology.
It doesn't matter how much he tries to spin it or if the abuse happened 8 years ago. If he did that with cameras all over the hotel, it's mind-boggling to think of what he's done with no cameras around behind closed doors. Because Cassie's lawsuit was settled after one day, Diddy did not admit to his wrongdoings, but denied them instead.
He denied that that happened when she filed it in a complaint. And then when the video came out is when he apologized for it.
The pressure is on to turn the public's opinion of Diddy, but it won't be an easy case. His current legal battle is centered on charges related to trafficking and abuse, involving disturbing claims of manipulation and coercion. But the most shocking detail is the implication that baby oil was used during some of his alleged abusive incidents. I mean, it's not just the fact that baby oil was used, it's the fact that 1,000 bottles of baby oil were found when Homeland Security raided Diddy's home.
How do you explain the baby oil and the lubricants? 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
I don't think it was 1,000. I think it was a lot. I mean, there's a Costco right down the street. You know, I think Americans buy in bulk, as we know. And you know, this is consensual adults doing what consensual adults do.
There's really no way to justify 1,000 bottles. Yes, adults would do adult things, but stocking baby oils in thousands means that you run through it fast. So at least the alleged freak-offs seem true. Even with all these efforts from his lawyers, Diddy's attempt to make bail failed twice.
But prosecutors said that he could not be trusted, that he has a history of trying to intimidate witnesses, including some who are going to be witnesses in this case. They urged the judge to remand him.
The music mogul offered the court a $50 million bond. His passports, his children's passports, his mother's passport, his private jet, and the equity of his mother's condo in Florida. The entire package has been valued at over $70 million. But it was not enough to sway the judge. Transcripts from court insiders said that the judge said, "I don't believe that counsel has the ability to control you, given the very significant concerns I have, particularly because of substance abuse and what seems like anger issues." Another concern was also that Diddy was too much of a flight risk, and he has been alleged to intimidate witnesses in the past. Diddy was sued by Dawn Richard, his protege, a member of his Dirty Money group. She claimed that he groped and threatened her and at times refused to pay her while he oversaw her career. Diddy didn't call Dawn, he called Kalena Harper, Dawn's friend and bandmate, 58 times in 4 days. Kalena would have been a potential witness in the case, but she released a statement saying she did not witness anything and backed out. Although Diddy's lawyers tried to sweeten the deal by offering house arrest and argued about his horrific jail conditions, the judge simply didn't believe Diddy would stay put. Now, despite the 2 failed attempts, Diddy's legal team isn't throwing in the towel just yet.
Unless he appeals and an appeals court says the judge was wrong, the judge should have allowed him to post bail, which is exactly what they are going to try and do. Right.
The team is prepping for a 3rd bail attempt like their lives depend on it, and rumor has it that they're pulling out all the stops. Experts say that this appeal Diddy is attempting is an impossible task. For Diddy to be successful, he has to go to an appeal judge who would basically have to admit that the trial judge got it wrong. Let's remember that the trial judge's reasons for denying Diddy bail were that he was a flight risk and he had the means to intimidate witnesses. When you consider how wealthy Diddy is and the evidence that was presented by the authorities, it's a reasonable judgment. This man can pay his way out of the country and offer witnesses huge sums of money for the bail to be granted. This 3rd time, the appeal judge would have to admit that the trial judge committed abuse of discretion, which means that he failed to exercise judgment responsibly. It's a big ask, but it seems like Diddy is creating a dream law team to make that happen. One of the new lawyers the rapper has added to the team is called Alexandra Shapiro, and she is an expert in appeals. In fact, she's one of the best in the entire country, and she probably comes at a hefty price. This job is right up Alexandra's alley, as she has successfully represented prominent Wall Street professionals, public officials, as well as major public and private companies. This just shows how money can potentially buy Diddy freedom. He knows that this could be his last shot at freedom, at least until trial. If this 3rd attempt falls flat, it's likely that he'll be stuck in MDC until his court date, and who knows when that'll be. So what's next for Diddy? Well, he's got his 3rd bail hearing coming up, but if the past is any indication, he might be sitting tight in that cell for a little longer. What are your opinions? Would Diddy be successful this time? Do you think he should stay in jail even though it's dangerous, or should he be allowed to be under house arrest until it's time for trial? Let us know in the comments below.